Hi, and welcome to Sunday Soul Food. Give everybody a moment to log on with me here if you're live on Patreon with us. I really want to go into um, the abundance part of Taya today. Taya is all about trusting your abundance. We talk about trust quite a bit. We talk about our soul quite a bit and what our soul desires to experience when we manifest as an eternal being here on earth, and what our ego wants to experience, and what the function of those two entities, if you want to separate those as two separate entities. I believe they're not really two separate entities. I believe that those two things, when you're in physical, in this case, when you're a human being, make you a whole being, but they're both aspects of your being. So you have your ego aspect, you have your soul aspect, and the interesting thing is what the soul wants to experience is expansion of consciousness, and very often that gets judged a little bit in 3D, or what we call the matrix rather. And that judgment of the soul wants to experience love, the soul wants to experience goodness, the soul wants to experience being a forgiving entity, the soul wants to experience nature. And a lot of times in spiritual teachings, we get really caught up in the soul wanting to come and just experience the positive aspects of our environment. We're taught that in religion, we're taught that in mainstream spirituality. But if you look at anything and everything in our experience through the eyes of source, and the way that you do that is to remove all judgment and to be in an authentic state of appreciation of everything, then why would your soul being discern a preference for only what we consider positive in the matrix? It doesn't. And that's the big leap from mainstream spirituality into the world of Taya and the teachings of the stream. It's really different. It's really a different mindset than what a lot of belief systems are offering out there. And when we have been taught our entire lives that there's good and there's evil, and there's high vibration and low vibration, which is kind of the same thing. Religion talks about good and evil. And then you get into spirituality and we talk about high vibe and low vibe, and it kind of morphs right back into the same type of teachings, just with a little different branding, if you think about it. The difference, though, what I've always gotten from the stream and what I have really allowed to come forward, and this is why I talk about this just about every time you hear me right now, is this mindset of being able to access source anytime, because source is always within us, and having access to that version of you that is source, which means no judgment, no fear, no comparison, no up the spiral, down the spiral. Even, I think that that's a useful tool to learn how to detune our ego, for sure, because when we're down the spiral, we know that we're more in ego and less in source, and so it's a useful tool. But we it's a very tricky thing not to get caught up in the judgment of where we are in the moment and where other beings seem to be operating in their day-to-day lives. I see a lot of that in spiritual teachings. We talk about this a lot, that a lot of times, a high vibrational being will be this, this, and this, and which means that anything less than that is somehow not good. And source doesn't see it that way. Source is here for all of it. Source is here for the pain and the suffering and the trauma, and all of these labels that we give to things, understanding that that is the human discerned preference of how to view those things and how to experience those things. But when you start really playing around with source perspective in your life and applying that appreciation of all that is to increasingly difficult topics in your lifetime, and understanding that, wow, if I look at that thing that I've always judged as negative through the eyes of Source, through the lens of appreciation, how does it change for me? Well, if you're able to bring yourself to that place, and you're able to, I know you're able to, because I've worked with so many people now who got themselves to that place. It's available to you. It may take some work to get there, but it is available to you. And getting yourself to that space of, okay, I can, when I'm triggered by something, or I have an old memory that is always negative for me, and then I do a little breath work, I do a little quieting of the mind, I do a little appreciation exercise, and I raise my vibration in the moment, and we can all do that. Then I go back to these more difficult topics, and suddenly they're not as difficult as they were. You may not be yet at full-blown appreciation, but they're not as difficult as they were just a few moments ago when you do that active vibrational exercise. So viewing it through the lens of Source, through appreciation, and I always like to say authentic appreciation, because there is a difference between what we call bypassing, meaning that you don't really appreciate it, you're just pretending that you do because you want to be spiritual, until you crash. That's what I see happening a lot with that love and light mentality of spiritual bypassing. Is you're pretending like you like something, you're pretending like you're okay with it, and then when you're lower on the vibrational spiral, it's going to come crashing back, and sometimes that will cause a crash for you. And I'm not into crashing. I don't believe we ever have to crash. I think that that is a chosen experience. Yes, we crash down our spiral sometimes, but we start doing this detuning work and this appreciation work, and you will find a place where you're not crashing anymore. You might spin out, which is different. Spin out is a prolonged period down your spiral where you've got some unwanted things that you're including in your life experience, but that's not really a crash. A crash is a plummet. A crash is your love and light, and all is good and all is well. Then suddenly one day it all unravels and falls apart, and you're like, "What in the hell is happening? Where am I? Why me?" All of that, all of that victim vibe starts to flow back in. That's a crash. You can get beyond the crash for sure. I don't believe that we ever get beyond the spin out, however, because the spin out does have value. The crash really doesn't, other than just the experience of the crash itself. But the spin out is when we are low vibe enough to really include a handful of negative things, and we sort of prolong that period because we need to create an uncomfortable space for us from which to create something new. An improvement of some sort, new creation of some sort. That is expansion of consciousness. That is why Source expresses itself into physical environments such as Earth, such as in the human form, one example of infinite examples. But that's why that exists. So if that exists for that function, Source creates a mechanism to separate physical consciousness from itself so that we can have the experience of challenges, things that challenge us. Challenge is a big tent of things. A challenge can be a close loved one dying suddenly. That's certainly a challenge. A challenge can be something tiny, something, your email's not working today. Those two things, that's sort of a broad spectrum of a challenge. One is something that could be potentially devastating and have a lifetime effect on you, and the other is something it's absolutely going to solve itself at some point, and it isn't that big of a deal, even though in a moment it may seem like a really big deal. So I've given you these two ends of the spectrum examples of challenges. All of it, according to Source, is our own created experience, so that we have a platform from which to create new and expand our consciousness. And that expansion of consciousness is the expansion of the Source being. Scientists are telling us that the universe is ever expanding. Well, how is the universe expanding? What's causing this growth? Well, I'm sure there is a more scientific explanation than what I'm giving you. There's plenty of that out there. This is understanding and believing in something that science has yet to prove. That's what these teachings are all about. Let's explore thought that isn't yet proven. And I know that there are people out there that need everything to be black and white. It's very matrix driven thought to think, gosh, until someone proves something, it's not real. And the whole concept of faith is believing in something more than what is yet proven. But scientists, even though they say that they operate on facts and evidence, they have to have a belief in something more to place themselves in the position of wanting to explore and prove things. So, in their own way, they have faith. They have faith that there is something more. There is something new to be discovered. There is evolved thinking on something that is already proven. And that's why they go about doing, the experimentation and the things that they do to attempt to prove things and get it solidified in black and white, which is what the matrix always calls for, or usually calls for. But if you're outside the matrix, you allow yourself to ponder realities that are not yet physically proven to us. That doesn't mean that you have to assign yourself something to something and just believe it blindly and perhaps suffer in it. But we understand from the stream's teachings that all of our perception of 3D reality is our own creation anyway. We have been taught how to judge and how to think and how to feel and how to operate in 3D. And we those teachings are what we refer to as the matrix. So we have this matrix of consciousness that shows us a path that we can take. And a lot of people are on that path. And some are doing well in it. And again, there's a spectrum, just like in everything else, because everything is vibrational. Some are suffering a great deal in it, and some are breaking out of it. And what we see happening in our environment now is that we are starting to shift our perspective of reality. And certainly we're shifting our perspective about the matrix. We're shifting our perspective of everything that we've been taught. All of this gender identity stuff, where do you think all that's coming from? That's coming from the questioning of the matrix. The matrix says there is male and female. Well, we know biologically, yes, there is male and female. And when it comes to reproduction, then it's very black and white, because it's perceived as a very matrix thing. But everything beyond the biology of it, because of the polarized world that we're in, we have everything splits into two sides. But beyond the biology of it, we're back to this energetic spectrum. So if you want to divide physical beings, in this case human beings, mammals, into male and female, you can certainly do that, and it's relatively easy to do that. But it's in terms of the energy that goes into that being, there is a broad spectrum, because you have what may be assigned a gender of female, and you can have an expression of that be what we would call very feminine all the way over to very masculine, and everything in between. But the matrix says it's supposed to be this. It's supposed to be this thing and nothing else. And of course, religions support that. Spirituality goes a lot easier on that stuff, but not completely. I've been criticized in physical and spiritual circles just for being gay. How can you be spiritual and be gay? And I'm like, well, you're kind of operating over there in religion. I'm operating outside of that judgment and into something that is more fluid than what the matrix teaches. And the matrix has even evolved largely to that type of thinking at this point. So the matrix does evolve. The matrix is not evil. The matrix is not here to crush humanity. The matrix is here to inspire the expansion of humanity. It's its own creation. It's its own consciousness creation, which is why we also suffer so much more than the other beings in our environment. We'll notice that the other beings of our environment tend to only suffer in the moment when they're actually in some sort of physical danger. There's not a whole lot of emotional suffering like we do to ourselves as human beings. We place a lot of emotional suffering because the matrix tells us that this is what life's supposed to be. And when it's not that thing or that way, we judge ourselves for that. We judge the universe for not providing it for us sometimes, and then we suffer in that judgment. Again, we go back to all suffering is a result of us labeling something as should not be. So when you stop doing the should not be label, you end your suffering. And when you start systematically catching yourself when you're placing that should not be label on something and stopping it in the moment, well, wait a minute, I'm sitting here believing that I'm experiencing something that shouldn't be, yet I'm experiencing it. So why should I label this should not be when it is something indeed that I have manifested for myself? So when we stop doing that should not be stuff, we start to raise our vibration. We start to raise our vibration. We're in source more of the time. We're in source more of the time. We start momentum building in that source direction. And we start understanding what it means to observe something in full-blown authentic appreciation. And then you can start taking that vibration and revisiting parts of your life. I don't like to spend a whole lot of time going back into the past, but certainly there are things that happened in the past that are informing our present vibration and will continue to do so until we shift it. So we shift it by going back, dredging up that painful thing from the past and viewing it through the eyes of source, meaning I'm going to appreciate this manifestation, this past manifestation of mine, and look at it through authentic appreciation. And in the beginning, it's a little weird to do that. In the beginning, it's like, oh, I don't know, I'm trying to appreciate it. And the reason that you can't reach that point of appreciation is because you have spent your entire lifetime from whenever that event transpired until you're present judging it. And so you've built this momentum. Excuse me. You've built this momentum. So you've got this momentum built and this vibration built and well established on that topic that's rooted in judgment or fear or some combination of those things. And when you start to detune that, you don't just instantaneously detune a well established vibration like that. It takes work, it takes time. It takes you putting some effort in. And that effort comes in the form of exercises of revisiting it again and again and again and applying this new thought, this new idea of authentic appreciation for the fact that I created this thing to make myself a more sophisticated being. Sorry. I'm not outside today. I should be outside. It's actually a beautiful day out there, but my electrical still isn't working. I need to figure that out so I can have the light on and do the outside videos. So I'm in my quasi studio in the rental home with my Taya Bootcamp graduate mug. I replaced all my mugs post-fire finally. So I have my Mastery mug, my Taya mug, and my Taya Bootcamp graduate mug. I think I posted a picture, maybe not in Patreon, but I will post a picture in Patreon of all those mugs and a link to where you can get one if you want one. So the exercise of viewing anything in life with authentic appreciation and being a little challenged by looking at something through the eyes of appreciation that you've spent a lifetime not appreciating. Think of it this way. Here's a little exercise for you to do. So think about something very difficult that you experienced. You were abused in some way. You were treated poorly at work. Maybe you were fired from a job. Maybe you went completely bankrupt in a business. Maybe you lost a home. Maybe you lost a child. There was some painful thing from your past that you have experienced. And think of one that was pretty painful for you that you experienced, that in time you met someone else that had the same experience. And when you met this other person that had the same experience and you began chatting about it and commiserating over it, how your vibration actually went up instead of down. And that vibration going up was simply that you met someone that finally understood what you experienced. And you appreciated meeting someone else that could understand what you experienced, and your appreciation of that interaction, your vibration went up. Think of a time when you've had that happen. If you haven't had anything major happen that you've had that experience with, then come down from there and think of something not so big, but you've had this negative thing happen. You felt like no one really understood what your experience was. You meet someone else that had the same experience and moved through it. Usually, this isn't going to be an example of something that you're still in or something that was recent, because we know the old saying, time heals all wounds. Well, time does, because we continue to move through vibrational flow. And when you have a traumatic experience happen, as time goes by, if it's not an ongoing thing, you're going to go up your spiral enough, if you allow yourself to do so, to start a little healing from that event, even if you haven't gone into major healing or significant healing from it. So you've let a little time pass, then you cross paths with someone that had the same unwanted experience as you, and in your appreciation of meeting them, all of a sudden you're sitting and saying, yes, that was my experience too. Yes, oh, it was so awful. And yes, this happened and that happened. And maybe you start to explore the positive aspects of it if you can find any. Maybe there are none. Maybe it's just, the time has helped. Yes, I agree. The time has helped me. So in that moment, in your appreciation of meeting this other person and being able to sit around and sort of chat about it, the vibration of that event softens just a little bit, because now you have someone that understands you. Even if it's just in the moment that you're chatting, you have someone that understands you. That connection, that 3D connection that you're having with that person, that is source moving through you because of your appreciation of that connection. So take that idea and continue to build upon that. Continue to understand that when you are no longer a physical being and you are fully reemerged into your completed state, which is you are fully source. Your ego has fallen away because you no longer need it. It no longer serves you. It was there for your physical journey, and that was it. The ego has fallen away, and now you are pure source. You are appreciation of all that is. And in that appreciation of all that is, you are able to appreciate all of it, because you understand that, oh, that thing that when I was rooted in ego and physical that I thought was so painful, whether it was chronic illness or abuse or being treated differently for some reason in your physical experience, whatever it was, it's expanded your consciousness now eternally, because you have had that experience. You understand what it's like. You perhaps have more empathy for others or better understanding of others who have experienced the same thing, because you have now experienced it. You are a more sophisticated being. That is what physical is all about, is coming to physical and experiencing everything that life has to offer, in terms of everything that you place in your path as your manifested reality, of positive and negative aspects. And you move through these positive and negative aspects, and you become a more sophisticated being as a result of that. The argument to that is always, well, gosh, why would anybody bother? Why not just come to physical and enjoy everything that life has to offer? What if we lived in this perfect world where everyone had a yacht, and everyone had a personal chef, and everyone had this and everyone had that, and we just come and we live in luxury and joy, and we're never sick, and we never want for anything, and we only have positive interactions with everyone? Well, that is the energy of our eternal being, is a pure positive, only experiencing wanted things, never separating from source, never discerning a preference for anything, never having anything presented to us that we have to even discern a preference for, because everything that we want, all of our needs are just met automatically. But if you can really use your imagination to imagine what that would be like, how would you expand your consciousness? How would you grow in the journey? And if there was never any adversity, and there was always just, you're in this perfect state of getting everything that you want, then what is the vehicle for growth? And what's the purpose, and what's the point? And how bored would you become with the life experience pretty fast when you just experience everything that you want? It would actually become a very boring environment, because with no challenges, if it's just vacation after vacation after vacation, after pleasure experience after pleasure experience after pleasure experience, your mind would not be stimulated. Okay, another day doing exactly what I want, experiencing all that is and everything that I want. Okay, great. But our world is not like that. Our world is a world of contrasts. There's always going to be positive and negative aspects to everything. And those negative aspects exist to create the expansion that we desire. And the reason that we have this spectrum of beliefs is so that we have this tapestry of society that we have. And if we didn't have down the spiral negative things to move through and away from and discern a preference away from, we wouldn't be discerners of preference at all. And all of the things that we think are so special that we want to experience because they're special would no longer be special, because we would all have them. There would be nothing left to dream for or reach for. Everyone has a yacht. Yeah, it's kind of like everyone gets a trophy. Everyone has a yacht. Everyone has a yacht. Everyone has every need met. And at that point, you have to think in our physical reality, if everyone has everything that they want all the time, who's serving you in physical? That's a tough one for a lot of people. I know a lot of people have this sort of, especially in spirituality, that everyone should be equal. Everyone should have the same things. Everyone should have food and shelter and all of these things. And I think that there was a time where humanity was probably operating on a little more level playing field. And then our creative minds started churning beyond that. And then suddenly this sort of hierarchy started to form, where you needed someone to build the yacht. You needed someone to cook the amazing food. You needed someone to do these things. Well, who is going to be the ones serving and who are going to be the ones being served? Well, that all depends on where you are in your vibrational, in your belief system, and where you are in that pyramid that we talk about all the time. That we're all somewhere in this pyramid, from the base of the pyramid where most of humanity resides, which is a very lower vibration state of being in service, and being kind of stuck in that reality of I'm in the matrix. I can't get out of this. There's no way out. I'm going to have to work for the rest of my life. I have to go to a job that I hate every day to earn a paycheck, to just scrape by. There's a lot of people in this world operating like that in their own way. And we see evidence of it, every day. It's all around us. Why is that? Why do those people populate the bottom of the pyramid? If there was a loving God, there wouldn't be such a thing. If there was a loving God, we've heard this before, everyone would be at the top of the pyramid. If there was a loving God, there wouldn't be war. If there was a loving God, there wouldn't be natural disasters. Think about it, that even though humanity certainly creates a lot of destruction of self, wars and things like this, and now we're hearing more and more and more that so many of our illnesses are actually human created things. We're hearing now more and more evidence that COVID was created in a lab. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole today, but that's sort of always been my belief, that it was probably something that was created in a lab and used for some type of human control. So if everyone were at the top of the pyramid and everyone had everything that they wanted, everything they needed, we would want for nothing. But we would want for nothing. Therefore, we would be creating nothing. We would not be expanding our consciousness. So to be in these teachings, one of the things that there's no have to in here, there's no rules, but one thing that's very helpful to understand is that we all create our own reality. There is a matrix of belief that seeks to keep us not necessarily at the bottom of the spiral, but certainly below neutral. I believe -5 is the goal of the matrix, that compliancy. You're anxious, and you're a contributing member of society, but you're anxious enough to be controlled. to get the education that you're told you're supposed to have, to believe the things that you're told to believe, to work the jobs that you're told you have to work. And none of that's true. It's all an illusion of consciousness, but it's a very well-developed collective illusion of consciousness across all of humanity that functions a little differently depending on societies. But nonetheless, it's a matrix of control. And humanity is wising up to it, and we are starting to move out of that matrix of belief. And moving out of that matrix of belief, we're questioning. So in all of this questioning, we are starting to realize, well, gosh, what is an ego-driven thought and what is a source-driven thought? What is a human construct and what is our eternal state of being? Well, our eternal state of being is that we are not polarized in that state. We are not male or female in our eternal state of being. There is no polarity. When I hear people talk about divine feminine, divine masculine, well, if you think that about the fact that there is no polarity, that we are all that is, we are source, and we are operating in perfection in that state, you understand that feminine and masculine is part of the duality of the physical realm, and that the physical realm duality, the concept of masculine and feminine is a matrix creation. That this, loving, nurturing energy is feminine, and this powerful creative energy is masculine. I hear things like that quite a bit. Well, that's how we perceive it in physical, because we're operating in this world in this environment of duality. But beyond physical, if you're using the term divine, I assume you're really referring to the energetic realm. And what I have gotten from the energetic realm when I channel the stream, and I'm channeling the stream often, and what I've gotten when I'm channeling the stream is that source being, that source version of me that is very present even in this interaction right now, is not gendered. There is no divine feminine or divine masculine. It's not divine. Feminine, masculine are concepts that are human constructs, and it's really about the energy that goes behind it. And there's no judgment of that energy. That energy really is one thing. But in physical, it gets divided into duality, because in physical we have this duality of consciousness, this duality of energy, where we believe that there are two sides to everything. And some of those topics appear to us to be positive and negative, and some just appear to be different, i.e., male, female. So from the source perspective, none of it is negative. From the source perspective, a good way to think about it is, well, from the source perspective, there is no superior between male and female. Certainly not. There are certainly plenty of people in physical that think that one is superior over the other, and at times both. You have the feminine giver of life, that many believe the divine feminine is superior, and then of course you have the creative power of the masculine that other people believe are superior. But you can't have physical life without both. Therefore, neither are superior. One supports the other. They work in unison. So they kind of get separated out and then come back together in source and high vibration of source to create new life, even if that's just a momentary situation. So the concept of divine has no separation, has no duality. The concept of divine is appreciation of all that is, needs no separate identities, needs no measurement, needs no this is superior and this isn't. In fact, Source is very clear that the ego is not a bad thing. The ego is something that the matrix promotes. Therefore, because the ego is more reactive through fear and judgment, it's a lower vibrational entity or experience, if you will, than Source. But that ego version of us, that ego aspect of us, is something that we can detune, but we're not looking to eradicate it. We're not looking to get rid of it. We're not looking to shed our ego, because if we shed the ego, then we die. Those two things go hand in hand. So we're not looking to shed our ego. We're looking to detune it. And we're looking for Source to be our main energy driver in our human life experience. That's what Taya is. That's what the streams teachings are all about, is for us to be more source-like beings in our human journey. And in being more source-like beings in our human journey, we are able to appreciate more, suffer less, and yes, experience more abundance, more of the things that we want to experience. Because we are here to discern preference. Source is not judging what those preferences are and manifest and experience those preferences. Now, what I have noted is that as I have allowed more source and less ego personally, I look at things that I want in a very different light. Instead of, I need that to be happy. I need that to feel like a successful adult. I need that to, to be whole. I need that to feel like my life had meaning. All of that, I need that stuff, energy, has really dissipated for me in my Taya journey, in my work. And what has emerged is a vibration that I refer to as, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to experience that? I don't need it to be happy. I'm happy now. I don't need this to be whole, but it would still be nice to experience these things while I'm in physical, because it is possible to get yourself so up your spiral so much of the time and so blissed out and wanting for nothing that life gets boring. It's joyful and it feels great, but it's not particularly exciting, and it's certainly not particularly expansive. It was very interesting. I was on LOA Today. I don't think I've shared this over here or not. I don't think I've shared this over here yet, but I was on LOA Today last week. Walt Thiessen's wonderful podcast. It was last week or 2 weeks ago. And he was telling me that, we talked about it again on my podcast, actually, that will be coming out in a week or two, with Walt. He was telling me that I had forgotten about this, that in September of last year, I was saying that I was so blissed out that I was kind of bored. And then December rolls around and my house burns. So that was my creation. It's very clear to me now that my participation in that event was my creation of some sort of vehicle to sort of shake up my reality and shift me into a different gear and really level me up. I feel very leveled up now in many, many ways as a result of that fire. And I know that if you've been watching a lot of my teachings, I kind of just get on here and ramble about these things, but I'm really trying to express exactly what Taya is, what Source is delivering to us through me, meaning the stream, and bring clarity to everyone, because the concept of it and explaining it is one thing, but giving you the tools and the things that you need to bring yourself on this journey, if this is where you want to go, that's really what Taya is all about. So in these Sunday Soul Food sessions, I try to talk more in terms of what the soul is wanting, what the soul is all about, helping you make sense of the duality that we're operating in, make sense of the matrix in your own ego. And then the Taya talks, I'm trying to get more into the tools, the nuts and bolts of, okay, this is what you do and this is how you get there, if that's where you want to go. All of it is about the same thing. All of it is about detuning your ego, learning to operate your life through the eyes of Source as more of a source-like being, because you are. It's not something that you have to, go out and work for, really. It's something that you just need to start to work on the things that are overshadowing that part of you to allow more of it to emerge as your operating system. And when you make your operating system a system where you are continually looking for things to appreciate, you are continually taking time for yourself every single day to quiet your mind, raise your vibration, thus raising your default vibration, your life starts to transform. And if you spin out from those practices, and we're all creatures of habit, so we all have a way of getting really into something and being really good at it, and then sort of falling off the wagon, if you will, and going back to some old habits and re-experiencing things. Well, we know now from the teachings that that's because we have all of this stuff in our vibrational basement that resides down there. And until we clear it out completely, it's going to revisit us and give us an opportunity to expand more in. So it's there for us. It's not something that we have to rush to, oh my gosh, David says we have a vibrational basement. It's full of all this negative stuff that's dragging us down. It's creating all of our problems. I want to clean out my entire basement right now. Sometimes people come into boot camp thinking that. The boot camp teaches you how not to do that and why you don't want to do that over time. But the very basic answer of all that is that, clearing out that vibrational basement is a huge part of the expansive life journey. And it's very satisfying work to do, and you're not ever going to get finished with it. That basement is never going to be emptied and spotless and sparkling clean and brightly lit. And look at this, it's empty. I have an empty vibrational basement. That's not going to happen. Because as we go, not only are there going to be old things sort of still lurking down there, there's going to be new things that we put down there. That's why we manifest spin outs. There's going to be some new thing of, wow, I thought I was done with this. I have to tell you, I thought I was done with weight gain. I was 300 pounds in my 30s, and I got into shape in my early 40s and continued this sort of weight loss journey throughout my 40s into my early 50s. And then COVID came around, and then Michael and I together, both, we shifted gears into food for recreation, cooking and eating and not being so active. And we both gained a lot of weight. And I remember kind of really judging that. Wow, I thought I was done with this. And here I am back in this vibration. And now I've got, back pain coming back. And I've got all this stuff coming back that I was really done with. So it came back around again. Well, why did it? It came back around again to give me more of that experience to level up in, really, to build another platform from which to rebuild. Here's something you thought you were done with that's come back again. And one of the big lessons I learned about that is stop trying to be this image of the perfect guru. I was never consciously doing that, but I think that there was some subconscious stuff back there that I had to be this physical image, or I wasn't doing Taya right. And I wasn't going to be a good teacher if I can't, manage this part of my life. And I was really judging how I looked, and I was judging how I felt. And, and I had to detune all of that judgment. It all kind of came back. So it was really an interesting experience for me to have something return when I thought I was pretty deep into my practice. But when I finally arrived at appreciation of the spin out and appreciation of what I'd created for myself, and realized that all of that judgment of that stuff, all of the judgment of health and appearance and all of that stuff, there's nothing wrong with discerning a preference not to have that experience. But the judgment of it was still very 3D, very matrix. And it was some old energy that still was there. And I needed to create that experience to identify that negative energy was still present within me and that I wanted to clear that out. And I did. It may come back again, who knows? But I'm not, now that I've had that experience, I won't react to it the same way as I did, because I moved through the experience. And so it was different than the experience of losing it all in the first place. It was the experience of losing it all, having it, not be part of my experience for a long period of time, a decade really, and then have it return, and then judging the return. Like, that was a whole different thing. That judgment of the return of an old unwanted circumstance was a whole new thing to work on. So that was good. And, another one that's come up for me is really detuning financial abundance, detuning that, that expectation that, okay, I got out of employment and I moved into self-employment, being more of an entrepreneur. And that was really working because I knew how to create the vibration around that. And I, kind of beat the odds around all of that and did well for a period. And then that period ended pretty abruptly. And when that period ended pretty abruptly, I showed myself that I didn't have to judge it the same way I would have in the past. And when I didn't judge it and I simply appreciated that, okay, this is what I'm manifesting right now. This is sort of falling away or dampening. I didn't go to my old habits of trying to pick up the hammer and start hammering. And in not doing that, other things emerged to support my belief system of this is how I live, without missing a beat. Not a beat. Not a downturn in any way whatsoever. So that was a pretty amazing thing to really show to myself. and very different than what the matrix teaches about financial abundance and well-being and all of that stuff. Simply a belief. Like, it's not coming from here. If I simply believe that it will and don't judge and don't fear, it's going to show up over here. And that's exactly what happened. So I love playing with this stuff. And the spin outs are a big part of creating a vehicle to level yourself up. You don't have to go looking for a spin out. I would not recommend that. You can do that if you want, but I would not look for a spin out. Allow those things to happen naturally, but recognize them for what they are, appreciate them, and then notice how quickly they get solved when you move to authentic appreciation of them. When you move to authentic appreciation of anything, it gets solved. You end the experience. You move to something new, something else. And if you're comparing yourself at all to anyone else's experience, including mine, you compare yourself at all to what the matrix tells you should be doing by a certain age or for, your level of education or whatever it is, that's all matrix stuff, all of it, all of it. The universe is magic. The universe will deliver anything and everything that you want to experience if you can keep yourself in that wouldn't it be nice vibration and systematically detune the things that drag your vibration down, thus allowing you to appreciate more, believe more, and trust more. That's why it all comes down to trust right there. It's all about trusting everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on Taya Talk next.